Alright, Lube Tube, got an update on our axial 6x6 conversion to 3.3 Traxxas nitro. I don't think this has ever been done, nor do I care. This is purely for entertainment of sport, or whatever the hell you want to call it. So, this has probably been the most challenging project I've ever tackled. And I've tackled most of the quarterbacks back in '86. Going forward, we took a axial unimog 6x6 chassis, which, worked great for what it was. But my son made a request that we make this nitro, and I'll never tell him no, ever. So that in life, this guy can figure out anything's possible. Because it is. Just depends on whether or not you have a shitty enough attitude to kill it. So, do a recap. We took my Unimog 6x6 chassis. I had to add a cradle for the 3.3 nitro motor. Now, I had to spin the transmission to get everything to work. We spun the tranny. When I say we, I mean me. Spun the transmission to work with the rotation of the nitro motor. Its location changed. I utilized the existing frame mount and re-drilled some holes, but I had to create a cradle out of steel to basically make this entire portion of the frame rigid. Otherwise, we'll lose mesh between our transmission spur gear and our engine clutch gear. So I had to make that rigid, which I did. Took some angle stock that I had, some small angle stock, and bent and curved and every which way to make work with what I had. Obviously, I had to add a throttle servo to control the servo of this motor, which is a 2-spring setup. This larger spring is for the return, that smaller spring is for the actual throttle, which will allow it to, as the servo wants to overextend, it'll compensate for that. Created a fuel tank out of 1.25 copper. Added, I'd sweat this in. It was a half-inch sweat by IPS female adapter, whatever the hell it was. I made work. So this is a small piece of copper, 2 end caps, and I drilled holes and bent some small copper tubing to get to where I wanted to go as far as the exhaust line. And my fuel line wraps under my custom cross member up around to the throttle body, well, to the carburetor. This little nifty fitting is just it's an oil burner fitting, which I had removed the screen end from. This basically allows me to just pull air in through the fuel tank when needed, so we don't create a vacuum in the tank. It allows air in. It would theoretically let fuel out, but I don't think fuel is, and if it does, it's going to have a very tough time getting out of that orifice. I just installed the metal diffs, front, rear, all 3 steel diffs. Currently waiting on some upgraded shocks, wheels, things like that. But just coming along. It was one hell of a Frankenstein creation. The original ESC is still installed, which I'm using. Connect my power to that, and then it transfers power to a Traxxas receiver, which has a crystal in it, which is in that box, which communicates with my Traxxas remote. So I'm able to use my Traxxas remote along with the Traxxas motor. Obviously, all the original components of this motor are still there. ESC, steering servo, throttle servo is new, obviously, because the electric wouldn't have that. But everything else is there. It still works as it should, or at least I hope it will. We shall see. Stay tuned.